Hello beautiful people and welcome back to Cole's Christmas Countdown Day 17. Today I thought we would sit and talk about some of the releases from 2024 that I am glad I skipped. I'm going to scooch over because we are going to put some pictures up on the screen, and today we're just going to talk through I thought about buying them and why I'm glad I didn't in the end. Okay, so first off, we're going to start with possibly one of the most controversial launches of the year. It's the YSL liquid blushes. I was semi-tempted when I saw that YSL were launching liquid blushes, but the more I heard about them, the more I realised I wasn't interested in trying them. Not only is the shade range kind of ridiculous, doesn't cater for a deeper skin tone at all, the shades quite frankly are just weird. I am Casper the Ghost Pale, and even for me that lavender would not work. I don't really understand this release. It seems very, very strange. YSL definitely missed the mark on these, and I'm glad I didn't buy one. Okay, next up, Natasha Denona, I Need a Nude and I Need a Warm. These are the same palette in a different font. And for me, I don't love a nude palette. So I'm really glad I skipped on these. I'm really glad I waited to try another Natasha Denona palette until Roxa came out because I've been really enjoying that one. I just think for me, they're just the same palette, and it fears me that Natasha Denona is going down the same vein as Pat McGrath, where all the palettes are going to be the same palette in a different font. There was also the I Need a Gold. I don't know whether that was 2024 or 2023, but all in all, just I'm glad I skipped these. I would never have used them. They're not my kind of palette. Next up, we have Patrick Ta and Barbie. Let me tell you, I wanted this collab so bad, but can you please tell me why they would release a shade that's already in the line? Typically, it's the only Patrick Ta blush I already owned when this released. It's the shade She's a Doll. It does look kind of different in the packaging, but I'm not sure whether the pink packaging is just throwing it off a little bit, making it look brighter. But I was so gutted that this was a current shade, and I loved the packaging. I would have 100% bought it if it was a new shade, but I'm glad I skipped it because I did not need two of the same shade, even if one was in pretty pink packaging. Okay, next up, a weird product that I do not understand why it launched. There's been a lot of hits and misses from Made by Mitchell for me this year, and I'm really glad I skipped out on the Slip Dew. I don't know why you would want something sticky and tacky on your face. I've seen a lot of people say it never really sets down. It stays to the point where your hair will stick in it. No, not interested. Really glad that I didn't fall into the hype of these when I was like picking up the concealer and the foundation, which I also don't really particularly like, so probably should have skipped those two. Okay, Lethal and Avatar. It's been such a long time since Lethal released a collection. I was really excited to see this one, but for me, I think these palettes were just too muted. I think the only thing I'm kind of gutted I didn't buy was the liners. But I think these would have been the kind of palettes that I bought, used in a video, maybe used a couple more times, and then they just went to the back of my collection to die. I think it's a shame. I feel like Lethal have kind of missed the bar recently with some releases. And although it looks cool, I'm glad I didn't buy it because I know I wouldn't have got the use out of it because it is kind of muted. Okay, MAC Glow Play Balms. I love the Glow Play blushes, so when they released these I was really, really tempted, but over this past 12 months I find myself very much reaching for a lip oil or a full like opaque lipstick. There's not really any in between for me at the moment. I haven't really been wearing anything that's kind of this like balmy, very light pigment texture. If I've been wearing that kind of lip, I've been going for a lip oil. So I'm glad I skipped out on these. They do look really lovely, but just I don't think they would have got enough use in my collection. Okay, I was so tempted by this palette. I think I did mention it in a new makeup releases. It's the Edge Beauty Technicolor palette. This looks gorgeous, but I just know I've got so many rainbow palettes in my collection, so many rainbow palettes that I love, that I would just not have got the use out of this. It looks beautiful. I think if you are looking to get into colour and want kind of primary shades, like basic shades, I think this one is gorgeous. But for me, I'm glad I skipped it because I think it would have been neglected. Okay, Unearthly High Temp. This is one that I taught myself out of, then I taught myself back into, and then I finally taught myself out of it again. It's a very, very warm colour story. All the looks I've seen people do with are beautiful. I've seen people rave about it, but again, I just know I wouldn't have used it enough. I'm not really very into that kind of warm colour story anymore. I recently bought the Beauty Bay £42 Rich because it was on £10 and I wanted to use it in some videos. So I've got that one now. I definitely didn't need something else on the same kind of vein. I've got Beauty Bay Fiery, which I rarely use. I just think I wouldn't have used it, even though it is gorgeous and everything I've seen with it looks beautiful. I just don't think I'd have reached for it. Okay, palettes that I have lusted after for so many years because of Angelica Nishvist, the Cleona, Archeo, Paleo and Oceano. These were expensive, which I do understand. They're all hand pressed. They are beautiful palettes. But now I look at the colour stories because I just coveted them for so long because they weren't available anymore. When they did become available, I did almost hit that purchase button, and now I look at them properly. I'm glad I didn't. I think when I first started really wanting these palettes, my makeup tastes were very different, and I think now, again, I just wouldn't have got the use out of them, and they were so expensive that it wouldn't have been worth buying them to not get the use out of them, if that makes sense. If it was something more budget, then fine, but they were so expensive, it would have been such a waste of money. Okay, this one really tempted me. This is probably the first Too Faced eyeshadow tin release I've been interested in, I don't know, maybe like 8-9 years. This was the Appley Yours. I love the look of the reds, the greens in there, but again, don't think I would have used it. I've never really loved Too Faced's formula. It could be very different. I know some people did really enjoy this palette. There's some really pretty looks coming from it. But again, would I have used it? Do I really like Too Faced formula? Do they do the kind of things that I want from an eyeshadow? The answer is no to all of those, so I'm really glad I skipped it. Next up, the Fenty blushes. I have literally seen one person talk about these. Now, they are only powder blushes, so they're not the most exciting product in the world to talk about. However, the fact I've only seen one person talk about them is absolutely crazy. I don't understand how there's only been one person talking about them, and that just makes me think they're probably just a bit meh. The last thing I need in my life is more powder blushes. Is it going to stop me buying them? No. But I'm glad I skipped out on these because the fact I've heard nothing speaks volumes to me. Okay, the Singe Beauty blushes. I really want to support Angelica Nishvist's brand. I really like the look of the brushes. But my whole point was, I'll try them in 2024 when they've brought out some other products, so I'm not just ordering a set of brushes from America that are going to cost me £1,000 million to ship here. Since then, she's launched the blushes, which were mainly on my list, but I do also want to talk about the new palette as well. The blushes for me were not my kind of blushes. I like a bold, I like a vibrant blush. They seem to be very kind of muted tones. They were a little bit shimmery, which I don't mind in a blush, but I also want that kind of bold pigment, and I just don't think... I think I'd have been buying them for the support of Angelica rather than the fact that I actually wanted them. And then their new palette, I think it's called Galactic something. It's a neutral palette with a pop of blue. It's not for me. It's not my vibe. I don't think it ever will be my vibe again. Maybe had this launched 9 years ago, I'd have probably lost my absolute shit for it. But it's just... no. I'm hoping, I really, really hope in 2025, Singe Beauty bring out something that I want to try alongside their brushes so I can try the brand. But for now, it's not for me. And then finally, this one was one of those purchases that I really, really thought about. I adore Bailey Sarian, but I am so glad I skipped the Melt collab. For me, Melt palettes, I've probably tried, I think I've tried like 6 or 7. I like one of them, which is the Rust palette, which I feel like is such like a basic palette. It would be hard to go wrong with it. Every other palette I've tried from Melt has either been lackluster, the shades just don't blend how I want them to do, they've been patchy, the pigment's been off. I really, 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 really love Bailey, and this collection was hard for me not to buy because I really, really wanted to support it, but it just got to the point where I was like, it's not come to Beauty Bay, so I'm going to have to pay Melt's international shipping, which is crazy expensive. And it just got to the point where I was like, and I've literally liked one Melt palette I've ever tried, so is it worth spending all that money when I know I might not like the formula? And it's more than likely I won't like the formula because I don't like the large majority of Melt's formulas. So I decided to skip it. That one was difficult. They had like a beautiful like duochrome pop cream shadow. Apparently those dry out really quickly though, so I'm glad I didn't pick that up because I feel like I wouldn't have got enough use out of it before it dried up. It was a tough one, but I'm glad I skipped it in the end, and I will also be skipping the second release. If the lipsticks ever come to Beauty Bay, I might be tempted to pick them up, but in terms of the palette and any of the cream kind of formulas that they've brought out in like duochrome flakes and whatever, I'm skipping. So that is it for today. I'd love to know what launches you are glad you skipped in 2024. I feel like there probably was more, but I wanted to create like a semi-cohesive list. Let me know in the comments what you are glad you skipped and what you were glad you bought in 2024. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more from me, hit subscribe. And if you want to make sure you never miss another video, hit the bell icon and YouTube will notify you next time I post. You've been fabulous. I've been Coleoftheball, and I'll see you tomorrow for another Cole's Christmas countdown. Bye!